Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And I'm afraid to tell you, I'm about to take you to school. No, not that kind of school. It's self-storage school with my guest, Bree Hartman. What is the self-storage school? Definitely not another real estate course. It's a hands-on roadmap to achieving financial freedom and life flexibility through self-storage investing. She's going to tell you how she went from gyms to storage and why right now. Bree Hartman. Bree is a former gym owner turned commercial real estate investor. She's the owner and CEO of Storage House Group and the founder of Self Storage School. Bree, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
all the things.
Yeah, exactly. We almost killed it in our pre-conversation. I figured we better turn this mic on and get going. But it's a pleasure to have you. And I always send out a pre-form. I don't know that the audience knows this. I really enjoyed what you wrote. I know we're going to get into some of it. But why did you go from gyms to real estate? What was the thing that made you change the trajectory? Because in what you do, they're kind of similar and differentiated between what other people do. But why did you make the switch?
Yeah. So long story short, I got pregnant, having you're wanting to start a family and kind of getting that started. And so owning a gym, you own a business, which self-storage is a commercial real estate asset and it's a business.
Yeah.
I had no idea about going into storage at that point. It was, okay, done the gym business. It was great. Loved it. Went through COVID, created an app. And at the very end, you're like, this is just a jumping stone, right? And so, you find out the first thing is listening to a couple podcasts and you're like, I'm going to get into real estate. So I had one accidental rental where that idea is yes.
It's one of my favorite terms ever, accidental landlord and accidental rental. I just love it.
It happens, right? Yeah. And you're like, should I sell my house or should I rent it? And so definitely ended up renting it, learning really, really fast. I thought rentals were going to be the answer. I was like, I'm going to own 20, rentals. And so the first one, I learned that you've got toilets, you've got mildew, black mold there, which is actually it's mildew. They just need to actually ventilate. And then a service dog came in about 7 months in and created about $8,000 worth of baseboard damage.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just creating another job. And so I think to your point, and even just to your listeners, when you are trying to think smarter, I created my gym business the wrong way. You go in as a solopreneur, you do everything yourself, and you're you come out 5 years later and you're like, I swear I will never do that again. I learned,
you're
right?
Tired, yeah.
You're tired, yeah. And so, I think being in your mid-30s, I was like, I want to work smarter, not harder. And so that was that big promise to myself was if I do go into owning another business, I want to create it the right way. And it's reverse engineering, right? We talked about if you peel back the layers, even in real estate in general, people want time freedom. They want financial freedom. They want life options. I want slow mornings and to lay my head on the pillow and say, I feel good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Without heart palpitations. And so, honestly, it was at that point where I had one rental and I was like, I could buy two more. Or, I can explore some other asset classes. And while I painted every flipping wall in that rental house, I heard about storage, and thank goodness. And so after that, because you're pregnant, you have a ton of hormones, you're crazy, right? You're used to that. So I woke up and told my husband, I was like, hey, I bought a $3,000 ticket to go to Las Vegas to go to a storage conference to learn about it. And I didn't even know what the word of acquisition meant. I literally went there and had to Google, what does acquisition mean?
Yeah.
So I always like to say, being a personal trainer and then owning a gym for 5 years, and then going into real estate, and then making that jump. My one thing, like Gary Keller says in one of the best books. Have you read it?
Yeah, of course.
No, it's the best one, right? It's like
boiling it down to just one thing is really good. Yeah.
I was like, my one thing, actually two things, was to birth a child, healthy. And then number two was to buy a storage facility or explore buying a storage facility.
Yeah.
So within that 8 months, I taught myself. I went to every webinar, every podcast, every book, and I taught myself how to underwrite storage deals. And while I was training people, pregnant, you guys, and then coming home at night and underwriting deals, the joke in the family was, is the baby going to come first, or is the storage facility going to come first?
Yeah, it's a race. Sounds like
it is. It was a race. Yeah. And so guess which one came first?
I'm going to say the storage. You seem pretty motivated.
I did. It's so funny. So yes, the storage deal came first. So we bought the facility with an SBA loan. So $3.1 million deal 6 weeks before I gave birth.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're getting right into it. Well, I mean, we'll get into it, but if you buy a storage that's operating, like you said, you're running a business on top of the storage. So you're not walking into a major rehab a lot of the times. That's it's interesting, though, if I just go back on what you said, I think for the listeners, residential real estate is just so accessible, and it's what's on TV. There's not a ton of, there's content now, obviously, on storage, but it's not the same as just, flipping shows and everything about residential. So it just seems that most people think real estate, they have to do residential. I personally think a lot of people are going to switch and go in this direction that you did quicker than most people do, where it's like, hey, look, this is just going to be a better scale to what I want to get. And P.S., there's no tenants and toilets. Like that storage, right? No tenants, no toilets, stuff. And very easy to move stuff up and down in terms of the rent.
Absolutely. And I, you just don't know what you don't know. And it's kind of like a bliss, right?
Yeah.
And so that one thing, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try with all my might to do this. But I do always like to say, like, to break it down, if people don't know, the self-storage asset class, there's many reasons why I love self-storage, but because it's a business and it's an asset, but also self-storage is, they call it's like recession-resilient, which means that people are always having their stuff. Like Amazon came 2 times today for me, and I'm sure your wife too, right?
It's sitting outside right now. I know I got an alert already.
And so just like, Americans, like, we are obsessed with stuff, and it is sometimes sadly cheaper to go buy on Amazon. And what can happen in an up market or a down market or a sideways market is people always have a need for, hey, I've got all these things in my garage, and, someone's like not happy about it. And so what are they going to do? Like, the easy button is to go rent a 10 by 10 down the street for $110. Put your stuff in there, and it's kind of that easy button. And now storage becomes this subscription-based business every single month, you would have to go rent a U-Haul or bribe your neighbor with some pizza to go rent his truck, go, take the stuff out to go take it to another storage facility. So,
I mean, that's the stickiness of storage, and people forget. I've talked about it a lot. It's like, it's not that storage owners are trying to gouge the customers. It's just that you can go up a decent amount, a fair amount of times per year. And the fact that you would have to go move all your stuff would cost you way more than the upgrade would be over a year. So no one ever does it. It's happened to me several times where I'm like, I can't believe they went up again, but am I really going to go rent a U-Haul and move the stuff? And then the same thing's going to happen at another service, self-storage. So it's like, the way I look at self-storage as a consumer is it easy to access? Is it clean? And have I had any problems? If not, I just don't look at the upgrade, when the price goes up. It just doesn't matter to me. And that's why the business is great.
Hands down. And so that's why, I think you look at storage, and there's just many different ways. Like in our facility, we looked at an average, people stay an average of 3 years, before they move. And so that's a really great, and we've had, tenants that have been there and clients that have been there for over 10, paying on stuff that might only be like $500 worth of items, but it is prized possessions that people they're like, I want to keep them. They're so attached, right, to their items. And so there's just always, I feel, a need in the storage industry for, more storage, and then making sure that you're in the right market. market.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing right now is making sure, like I'm teaching my storage school students, more people, right, are moving outside of these urban areas. I know, like I live in Sacramento, California, and there is now, if you look on every corner, there's public storage.
Yeah.
But if you look 40 minutes where new housing developments are happening, which is in every single direction, that is the areas that we call rural areas where storage is needed, but also a really good way to find these mom and pop owners that will have, a ton of value. And that's the thing is this is crazy, but there's 72% is still mom and pop owners in the storage world, which means they don't have a website or they don't know how to do price increases.
Don't answer their phone. Have their books on paper. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's fun. And that's a good point. And also, P.S., those people are not what the hedge funds are coming to get. They're people what you're coming to get and what we're coming to get. They're accessible. And again, I believe that the owner is aging in that category. If 72% are mom and pop, they're going to generally tend towards the older range. And a lot of their kids, which is part of the problem with taking over businesses, which is great opportunity to buy businesses, is that the kids don't want to do. They're like, I don't want to do self-storage. They don't know how easy it is,
Yeah.
So they're going to have to part with those facilities, and you find them everywhere. You can see them everywhere if you're paying attention.
And I think it's interesting because it's like a lot of people go from, it's like they want to own rental properties. And then finally at like 10 or 12, they're like, oh, I'm going to make the jump into commercial, right?
Yeah.
And a really easy segue is multifamily, just because it's more, more doors and a similar concept. But if you look at the two different graphs in the statistics, only 10% are mom and pop owners. Most of them, the majority of them are owned by equity firms.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that consolidation has already happened, which means they're a dime in a dozen. Yeah. Now, on the storage front, there's still 72% is mom and pop, where that's the value. That's the money on the table that, you can come in and negotiate with seller financing and come in and do a really great deal. And so I want to give this as an example. We just had one of our students lock up two storage deals. He's a firefighter, lives in Texas. And I told him, the best thing is driving for dollars, right? And cold calling. Sure. Doing mailers, just like any type of thing. He went an hour and a half, met the owner, negotiated with him, and now he bought that facility. And then he went to the next door neighbor. Now he's buying that facility. So he's buying two facilities in this town that's an hour and a half away, seller financing, and his captain is going to come in as the money partner. Yeah. And so, just a really great example on, coming in, putting in effort, finding a good deal that had no website and hadn't raised rates in over 5 years, which is wild.
Yeah, it's funny. People say when they're calling on, they're like, oh, no one answered. That's a bad deal. I'm like, that's the best. What do you mean? That means they're not running a good business. And to your point, though, when you're in this self-storage fee, your student's going to be in a great opportunity because now he's capitalizing the whole market there. It can ping pong people back and forth. But it's just such a different idea to go into self-storage. People, like you said, with multifamily, they're looking, that's a whole bunch more toilets, a whole bunch more people. Storage, you can go from one facility, you can get another. And it's, generally the operational side is going to be the same, especially if you're upgrading it to standards. But you can look at the old ones that you drive by and go like, oh, they don't even have a gate. They don't have any, and no automation. It's still a key and not a card, making everything more difficult. And as storage goes to the younger generation, they want it to look cleaner and be easier to get in and out of. I mean, that's what I want to be able to get in and not have someone to talk to.
Oh my God, that's what I was going to say. Like we're in the instant gratification, Amazon flick of a button right now.
Yeah.
And so all our facilities that we own and what I teach my storage school students is they're all non-manned. Yeah. It can support that, and everything is automated from. And I'll give you just a quick example of how easy it is that literally you pull up Google Maps, people find on Yelp or wherever they're looking, like normally within, 5 miles from their home, and they'll click the website. They'll be like, hey, I have this amount of items. I want a 10 by 10. They purchase it. They put their driver's license in. They sign the lease. As soon as they sign the lease and send that payment, a text and email workflow, just automatic, sent to their phone and to their email. Drive up right up to the gate, put their own code in there, come right in. It shows them directly to their unit. We have an automatic lock that's sitting there. They type in that code and it pops open. They put their stuff in, they put their lock on, drop ours in the box and go 24/7. No one had to, help them to that unit. They did it themselves whenever they wanted. And so I think a lot of people, especially now, after COVID, the ability to have an unmanned with no employees, like you guys, that's the biggest thing right now. Like trying, like as a fitness gym owner, like keeping my 1099s employed and wanting to come to work is like freaking half the battle. So being able to have, a call center and a boots on the ground and a team that only, works 10 to 15 hours a week is been key to maximizing your cash flow, your net operating income, and then the profits that you get from operations.
Yeah. And I mean, people forget that these storage units aren't places that get very messy. Obviously, you need to watch over them, but people are moving in and out. Sometimes there's some debris, but generally it's not like people are sitting around eating candy bars near their storage unit. Like they're in and out. There's no there's no waiting around. And in all the years that I had storage units, I think I saw another person in the storage unit, no matter how many, like maybe twice. You don't even bump into people. It's like great. Like it's like an introvert's dream. It's like, I would just live in a storage unit, but like you're saying, you're making it easy, but isn't it important, like you said before, to understand your market? Because if you go super rural, they may not be ready for all that automation. So you may have to do it a little bit of a different way. It still doesn't mean it needs to be somebody on site, but you may get more calls if you try to implement something like super techie, like in the deep South and in a very rural area where they're just not going to be ready for it.
Exactly. Yeah. And we do have a few in Louisiana, and, actually we train them and teach them how to do
that's what I was thinking actually.
And it's not as bad, but we do have a few. But I think with customer service, because it is a business, we have QR codes all across the facility, and so they can take their phone or phone or call in,
right? And
there's someone there that knows our store that can really help them through steps 1 through 10 if they really need that hand holding. And then to take it to the next level, we do have a boots on the ground that can meet them if they really are wanting to have that in-person touch. And so the only thing that we don't do, and we do this on purpose just to reduce cash, take it from a cash box, is that if you do a cash payment, we actually charge $50 because it takes our boots on the ground to go to the, bank.
Yeah. It's not efficient.
We tried not to do a lot of cash holding because that really, I think, messes up operations with automation.
Yeah. And I think if somebody says, oh, you're losing out on customers, it's not the customer that you want. It's not your avatar. So you just have to say, you know what, we'll stay at 87%, wait to get to 92% occupied, because we don't really want that. We don't need that cash buyer, cash in person to just get up, to 88%. It just doesn't make sense if it's not your business model. And it'll create more, calls and stuff for yourself that you don't want.
Absolutely. And I know you are a deal finding machine. And so I kind of wanted to share with you guys, because I think one of there's two mindset blocks that I see normally when people want to jump, from residential into self-storage. And it's number one, how do I actually find a good deal? And then number two, they think that they have to have a ton of money. They think they have to have multi-millions of dollars to buy storage.
Yeah.
And I always say that's BS, because I just bought a $500,000 house in California, which is the average, sadly, in California. And I also bought a $500,000 storage facility, and my storage facility cash flows way more than my house rental, and so that is something that I'd love to show and talk about. But then, I really want to open up my screen, because I think a lot of people are like, can I do this? That's the question that comes up into anyone's mind. And I think that has helped me be so successful, is you're like, can I do this? What is my first step? And then making sure that it's the real meat and potatoes.
Well, I mean, we talked about this before you opened it up, and it's just just goes to show you that you can hop on Google and figure out where are some opportunities that you can make contact with. And I think that's eliminating the analysis paralysis that people get themselves into by thinking, well, if I don't buy a class or I don't read a book, I can't do this, and you can.
So I just picked, Sullivan, Missouri, because I always like to say, like, we're not looking to buy in urban areas. We're looking, for anything that's over maybe a population of 4,000 people all the way to about 150,000. That's kind of our max. We like this spot because it's normally like on the outside of a second or a third tier market, kind of in that like rural area where normally growth is happening. We don't have rates such as like Public Storage or CubeSmart coming in, and we love that. That's the mom and pop side.
Yeah.
So this is just one. This is actually, I lost out on a deal here, so I might as well share it with you guys.
Yeah.
I love the market. And the reason, I wanted to like really share something that's true is sometimes those deals that you lose out on, they're the ones that pain you the most, but you always are very hyper aware and watching, right? What's going to happen. So if you just go into Google Maps is free. Everyone can use it. So all what you need to do is Google Maps, and then you would click like Sullivan, Missouri. That's the market that I was just looking in and put a couple offers in that got denied. So once you're in here, you can kind of look at some quick facts really fast. But what I love to do is you click the nearby button. Yep. And in here, you can search any business. People they forget this, and it's called self-storage. You just put self-storage in there. And so what happens is you've got this.
There's more, just for the people who aren't watching, there's way more red dots on the list than I expected.
Right? I know. And this is in like a 6,000 population in Missouri. And this is what I love about this is that this market is exceptional and the price per square foot is exceptional. It's in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
But people are using storage products, and we always love to know why. But this is called like the Google Map Pack. And so it shows up all right here, all the storage facilities on the left-hand side. But what I'm really interested in is, okay, which storage facilities do not have a website? And then which storage facilities have maybe under 15 reviews? And then under maybe 4.5 stars. So those are our three kind of prerequisites just right now. And my whole goal, you guys, if you don't come away with anything today, is to show you guys how easy and accessible this is for everyone, right?
For people who don't have the screen up, there's literally 6 on the screen on the first page that are all under 20 reviews and between 4 and 4.9. But, based on what you said for your strategy, there's 2 of the first 6 that are, in your wheelhouse right away.
Oh, yeah. And you come down here. So this one has a website. That's totally fine. But you've got this, not even AAA. What is it?
Quadruple A storage. Yeah.
But no website. So that mom and pop facility that is not taking advantage of SEO and all these key pieces. And so there's another one. And I'm gonna come in here. Let's take a look at this. Like 4.2 stars. Look at how mom and pop this is. Like if that isn't mom and pop, and it even has the date, 2015 was the last time they updated this.
Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Bree Hartman. And if you want to get in to Self-Storage School, it's pretty simple. Go to selfstorageschool.com. Right at the front, you're going to see something that says apply now. But first, pop around the site, look for testimonials, look at what Bree does, listen to the rest of this episode, then head back there. Let's get back to Bree. Well, we just were in the middle of doing Google Maps and had a little bit drop off. So we're going to hold off on the Google Maps and just go through your strategy now again. So when we dropped off, though, we were looking at the storage units, and now we're just going to talk through it. So your 20 reviews and less, you're looking for no websites because obviously that means they're not maximizing their capacity. And even better if they don't answer their phone. And it was interesting because what we saw on the first page, none had more than 20 reviews. So if you are good with the SEO aspect, you can overtake all of them and start pulling from business, which is, obviously an indication of something that looks more of an attractive market.
Exactly. And so that's, the biggest thing and what I teach my storage school students and people to do is like, we're going to create a, top 100 list and putting these different storage facilities down and prioritizing them, filtering them from, hey, which ones are the mom and pops? Like, let's call those first. Like the ones with no websites, the ones with, maybe under 4 stars, and the ones under like maybe 15 reviews, because day one, like that's kind of like the obvious, like in residential real estate, when you drive up and there's boarded windows. So we want to call those first because that is prime opportunity. And so that's exactly how, we purchased a facility that's only 30 minutes outside of our larger facility, one in Louisiana, and got it seller financing. And so, with that, we were able to put in a website right away, automate it, and really make improvements and customer improvements. And then we increased rates by 22% within the first 6 months. So immediately, value add. And we didn't have to do one thing for capital expenditures like with gates or
right. It's not the value add that people are thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I wanted to show you guys is that, we still have 72% are mom and pop owners. And what's very fascinating is that, yes, storage is becoming more popular, and storage owners are getting more calls, but for the most part, these are still, baby boomers that are retiring and wanting to retire, and their kids don't want it, like you said. And so there's just a lot of room, and they've been waiting for this past 18 months, and it hasn't been a great, I would say, acquisition, couple of years, but now they're like, let's sell. And so calling the number on the Google Maps is actually number one. I tell my acquisition managers and my students, call that first. And then, let's try to call their cell phone number and send them an email and a text.
Yeah.
So just a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. And I think, people who are looking for residential, again, they get taught, or they take a sub-2 class and they think seller finance is easy. It's just residential. It's like a needle in a haystack. When it comes to commercial and business buying, like seller finance is the way of the world. Like it actually works out better for both sides. And it's especially advantageous for self-storage because, again, if their kids don't want it, these people don't want to take a huge income hit. So it's very easy to map out because you're doing it based on their income. And that's where, their low rental rates really help you as a buyer because you can just put it into the calculation and show them what it's worth.
Exactly. And that's where I think, it's just making sure you guys know that there's a lot of value add to be had. And as an example, I'll share just because I was talking about the one in Louisiana. We bought it for $500,000. He was a pastor, hey, we've owned it for 10 years. This was his side hustle.
Yeah.
And he hadn't raised rates in over 5 years, had a cash box, which means like it literally has a physical cash box where people every month would have to come in and put their envelope in. And so at this point, no website, drooling, because that's exactly what you want. And so we were able to negotiate, where we came in with $50,000, so 10% down. So, and then it was a 5% interest rate for 25-year AM for a 7-year balloon. So we pay him, and he calls it, his motivation was, he's like, hey, I want to move to North Carolina to be close to my grandkids. And I don't want to pay Uncle Sam, right?
Yeah.
I don't really care for a huge lump sum, but I want fishing money, fishing charter money. That's what he called it. So we pay him every month $2,400. That was literally what he wanted. And that allows us to cash flow $3,000 to $4,000 each month. And so I just wanted to share with you guys people that are numbers people, which is me and you. We're like, I'm drooling, we want to know the numbers.
Yeah.
Like, tell me, zero fluff. So, from that, we were able to take it. We bought it when it was grossing $4,900 a month at 90% occupancy. And we were able to, increase rates over time about 22% first year. And it was like 20% the following year. But it went from $4,900 to about $8,000 gross. So you're doubling, that margin. That's the money on the table here.
Yeah.
We're currently at 86%, occupancy right now. But what that does is it takes you from, buying it at $500,000 to now it's worth about $900,000.
Yep.
And then our goal is to sell in spring of 2026 for 1.1 at a 7 cap. So you're 2 times right your money, which is what you want to do.
Yeah, and you're lining it up for a buyer who wants something that's turnkey, whereas you're the one in. Yep. And it's interesting because it's really an operational value add. It's not, a physical value add, which is what I think is, if you're good with spreadsheets and you're organizationally efficient, like you can do self-storage turnovers because all you have to do is systematize the whole thing, go back, make sure the back books are all corrected, and be able to, get the upgrades with the tenants. But generally, storage facilities are made with stuff that stays. So you really don't have to do upgrades, and they're not supposed to look pretty.
No, they're literally, I always say it's like a cinder block building on, like 3x3 cinder block building, like concrete floor and a roll up door and maybe a light, but not really. And so really capital expenditures, like the things that we need to do every once in a while, every 30, 40 years, is maybe a paint job, insulation, fixing insulation, and then making sure that you've got your doors, right? You've got the weathering on the doors, juiced up with your WD-40.
Yeah. And are you making or buying climate controlled, or are you looking for environments where you don't need it? Because I've always stored stuff in climate control just because I want to make sure it's safe. Obviously, there's some markets where you probably don't need it, and a lot of the old schoolers don't have it. So that's, maybe a cost that you have to throw in there.
Yeah, no. So we've got a few different facilities with climate controlled, and we love climate control because you can actually get a higher price per square foot.
Yeah, for sure.
So like a normal drive up 10 by 10 might be like $110 versus your climate controlled is about like $150, $165, so the, having in certain areas like Louisiana, South Carolina, Arizona, where you have humidity, people want more of that self-storage climate controlled product. But if you're close by a university, you know what I mean, and they're seasonal, a lot of people are like, hey, I want the cheapest, blah, 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 so the drive up is actually something that they look for. But what's fascinating, I think, right now is there's been a lot of it since 2020 when construction was going crazy and the banks loved storage. There was a lot of new supply, new builds that were 3 stories, 4 stories long. And so what and what they have found is that, people love those 1 stories where you can just drive up versus having to go up in an elevator and all these, big things.
I really only think leveled storage works in cities where you're used to being in apartments. Like, to me, I'm not taking an elevator. It's hard enough when you pull up even at a 1 level, if you're not on the exterior and you have to go inside and you have to key card the door every time, and you're doing, it's actually a lot, but you need the unit. But I've never put my stuff in one that's not, only 1 story. It's just easier.
Exactly. And so I think and then obviously like you're talking about like funding, right now. And so I love, teaching like my students, like, obviously the best thing is how do you de-risk yourself and what is your cheat code is, yes, can we use seller financing? Maybe majority half the time we can, the other half the time we probably can't. But I always say like making sure to always ask, right? Empty mouths don't get fed. And always presenting offers to a broker or to a seller that have some type of seller financing involved.
Yeah. And explaining it for those who don't understand, because sometimes people think it's a trick, especially if they're not, or even agents, they don't know what seller financing is. I mean, 99% are like, what's that? Are you trying to play a game? It's like, no, you're going to completely reduce your tax liability. So don't you think like being able to explain it to all parties is important, because then they realize, wait, it's not a trick. Like, this is actually good for everyone if they don't need the cash influx.
Hands down. And I think that's the number one thing is like, we've got all these sub-2 and all these seller financing, like, words that are passed around, but you as the buyer need to know how to educate and know how to speak about it. And we give our students kind of like a PDF, like a 2-page PDF that they will actually submit to their broker. So
that's awesome.
Educate the brokers, and then sometimes you got to educate the seller. And this is a know, like, and trust, environment where, in order for someone to feel comfortable to do seller financing, they need to know about it, because now they are the bank, right? And making money based on that interest rate, getting it in small monthly lump sums with normally a balloon. They have to feel comfortable like they are getting a deal, right? And then they have to have the opportunity that they chose that. And so it's very much, I feel like, education first, and then know, like, and trust. Building that relationship is like top key. And then number 3, it's, making sure that they trust you and go through with it. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's mom and pop home buying. It's mom and pop everything. You have to build the relationship. That's why wholesalers fail out in the field on anything, because they're not trying to build relationships. They're just trying to get quick deals. And those who figure it out that like, hey, this is just a people game. I can wait them out. Nothing's urgent. They need 2 years. You can figure out a lot of different ways to do it. And especially if you're, I really like what you said about how you stack the lists. And that's something that I've always been a big advocate of. I think people build these big lists and then they just start at A and go to Z. That's just a horrendous waste of time, because you can just be more efficient. Like you said, you immediately go to only one owner. So they're all mom and pops. And then you go distance wise. How far do they live from the facility? I would start with the one who lives the farthest from the facility. Like, there's ways to make your list building more efficient, because you might get one on the third and then you still have that list for later. Maybe you take a break for 6 months, you start to run it. You're like, oh, it's pretty easy. Now you're only at like number 6 out of the 200 because you didn't just do aimless calling.
And it's not like, everyone knows it's not on that first call that you get that deal, right? Yeah. It's like that.
You need some practice too.
Like I've been working on a seller for a good year and 2 months.
Yeah.
And so, I always love, at office hours this Friday, I love just being transparent. So I'll cold call 25 different owners just for them to watch what I say and what I, do. And a lot of people, like you said, they miss these opportunities, even in residential and in commercial, because they're great for, hey, would you like to sell? So I was going to be a little, I always love playing what do you call it? The cold calling, like advocate, but in storage, like how I like to do it and how I teach, my students is I pull it up on that Google Maps and I say like, hey, is this John at X, Y, and Z storage? And he's like, yes. I was like, hey, I just saw your facility. I know this call might be out of the blue, but I just wanted to see, I've been looking into storage for quite some time. I was just wondering, would you ever consider an offer, on your facility? I've been looking in this market. See what he says. I let him blank, And then if he doesn't say, he's like, hey, I'm not interested. And that's totally fine. You're like, oh, well, I really like that your facility is close to a Dollar Tree. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got into storage? And so you're segueing. Yeah,
that's so smart, because that's very similar to me. I've always told people I only talk about the property when I'm calling off market 1 of every 4 calls. And my thing has always been, they say, oh, you didn't even ask about the facility. Yeah, well, I figured, you'll let me know when you're ready to sell. I'm just seeing how you're doing. That's the personal aspect of it. And it's also, that's going to help you learn stuff, especially when you're new. Why'd you get into it? What are the struggles? Are you having any struggles? That's a great question, because then it'll actually, maybe I do want to sell. This place sucks. I'm not good at it,
Oh, no. And I think that's because they want to help you too. And so that's why I always like to say, would you ever consider an offer? Because you're not selling them something, you're actually giving them money.
Yeah, exactly. An opportunity.
An opportunity. And if you are a business owner, of course you're going to say yes. You want to know the value of your facility, right? And then the second thing is always connecting with them and just being like, hey, as I look for a facility, how did you buy this one? Can you tell me your story and your background? And then after that, the third thing that you always like to do is just like, hey, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Do you have, I know you, as a business owner, you probably know a few of these other owners. Do you know anyone that might be, considering, would consider an offer?
Yeah.
And so it's like you have 3 touch points, and then you call them back 3 months later and say, hey, I saw, the Little League won the first, division, and I really like this. This market's been, blowing up. I'd love to, hear, how's your facility doing?
Right. And so then they say it's doing the same.
And it's exactly. Yeah. Oh, okay. Like where's your 10 by 10 rates? Hey, I'd love to come by. Are you open if I come by? And you just showed me a little bit around your facility and how you manage it. Yeah. So that's how, one of my students got to buy 2 facilities right next door to one another, is just building relationships, because it's all about, long-term relationships with long-term people. And that's the real estate game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just dropping back on the seller finance again, I mean, the easiest way to describe seller finance to people who don't get it is like, hey, you choose the price, I choose the term. That sounds great to everybody. Like, because it means they don't need the money right away. So what price do you want? Oh, you want $1 million? Great. Let me back it up into a way that this works for me. And there's always a way to do it. You're obviously going to be able to tell them what it's worth. But if they want something more than it's worth, there's a way to dial it up so it's more advantageous for you for terms. Maybe you put less down, you scale it out over more years. Like, there's so many options, and they're getting what they really want, which is whatever it is. Some usually just the price for self-storage so they feel better. But also maybe, like you said, maybe they want fishing money. How much do you need? $2,400. Great. We're just going to make it so the payment's $2,400. It's absolute science. I mean, I know you got a lot from Cody Sanchez, and I'm a huge fan. And I look at the way, it's buying businesses, but this is where the people and the negotiations comes into it, and it's not available in the same way that people think in residential. Like we were saying, there's a lot of people who have classes on it, but people have so much equity now, they could just sell on the market. It's just a different thing to talk to a mom and pop business owner who doesn't have anyone to give the business to.
And exactly. And I always like to relate, because like you guys calling even an owner, you're shaking in your boots. Like I still get a little nervous too. And I call that, I'm going to be calling 25 people in office hours pretending I'm not nervous. But, I think when it comes to this, I always like to say I warm up with calling storage brokers. Like I call 5 brokers because they want to hear from you, and you better be calling them, building relationships with brokers too, because they have pocket listings and building that up. So you're working that pipeline, and then you're calling owners. As soon as you get off, you feel good about yourself because you talked to five brokers that wanted to talk to you and make sales right now because they're not making any good sales.
Yeah.
Then you kind of, go out and talk to an owner. And the first couple of times, it's going to be scary. But after you build on that, and what my students see is they're like, wow, they gave you their unit mix. They gave you how much they made gross in 2024. It was that easy. And it's all you have to do is ask. When you're a business owner, you know what you made in 2024 because you did your taxes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's what I love teaching is like, we always buy facilities on what a storage facility is worth today, not pro forma, not in the future. It's what it's worth today.
Your job is to achieve the pro forma, not pay for it.
Exactly. And pay for it. And so it's important to, understand what it's worth, and then where is that value, and what is it worth to you, or where people not seeing where it can go in the future. So it's fun. Like you can see, I just nerd out all day. Like I love self-storage. I could talk about it all day long. So
you made a great point about storage brokers though, because if you think about pocket listings in residential, again, it's a whole different story, but pocket listings for storage are very, very common because all the storage owners know each other, and nobody wants to be the one who's out on LoopNet. So they want the broker to poke around. Hey, do you know anyone who buys them? Where they have a number, but they just don't want to be seen as selling when everybody else is then going to call them like, hey, why are you selling? Like, what's going on? Same as like someone doesn't want to put a sign up in their yard, but if it's on Zillow, everyone's going to find it. So it makes sense that there's a lot of opportunity for pocket listings, and nurturing the brokers is just as important as making those calls. It's a great point. I really think it's smart.
It's just as important. And, it's like having your pipelines, like building your pipeline here with on-market deals and brokers, relationships again, building relationships with off-market sellers, mom and pop. And then the third tier is building relationships with wholesalers, because you've got wholesalers. I'll pay all day a wholesale fee if you bring me a good solid deal.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's, important to do all three, and then to tell everyone in your mother's. The fourth one is tell everyone in your mother's that you want to buy a storage facility, because you might have Joe Smo's uncle be like, oh, I own a facility, and which has happened to me, which is wild, at a woman's neighborhood event. And I got on the phone with him, and he never ended up selling to me, but I have his contact. I call him every quarter.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing about storage owners, the same as I say about real estate investors. When I tell people, hey, go to your first real estate investor meetup, I'm like, they're not going to look like you think. They're not going to be like dressed up in a suit, and they're going to be like in flip Crocs and like a ripped shirt because they just came from their property. And same for self-storage owners. You could not create a demographic that would make sense, because it could be anyone. It could be, something that they inherited, or something, they saw a class and they bought it too early and they may want to get out. So, I mean, to me, though, your attitude really makes it work, and probably helps so much for your students, because you have to enjoy it. And if you enjoy the conversation and learning about why people got into it, it's only going to help you do better. And you're just building a better relationship, instead of, as you were saying, your classic wholesaler who just calls. My funniest thing ever is when people call on like foreclosures and pre-foreclosures, and the first thing they do is tell them they're in foreclosure. It's like, just tell them they haven't succeeded in life. It's the worst thing. You don't bring that out right away. It's just insane. And that's where I think personalized courses and mentors like yourself are going to do much better than something that is just telling kind of, what seems like it's right, but doesn't actually work in practice.
Exactly. And that's where, if you want to go fast, it's like find someone who's only 5 places above you.
Yeah,
Like there's all these gurus and experts that are like, you're a number, right? You've got like 800 people in a group or something. But finding people that actually know how to operate, how to find deals and plugging yourself in, that can only help you not make like, I made a $1 million mistake of my first deal. It's like you just don't know what you don't know. And so being able, and that's what I feel very, blessed is, I think being put on this earth to show my daughter and what's possible, but also to, help people, in the way of, hey, you can do this too. And then here's the blueprint. Like, let's go out there and then challenging them. Like, hey, what have you done? Like, what's your wins? Okay, here's some deals. Let's go cause some mess, right? Let's go out there, cause some mess, and then bring back the mess to me and I'll help you solve that next problem or put you in contact with that right person that can help you.
Yeah. And I mean, if you just look at it for busy professionals, this is definitely something you can do as a side hustle. If you compare it to buying, you get 100 units of self-storage, compare that to 100, unit apartment complex, and you can't self-manage that. You can self-manage self-storage. It might even not, you don't even need a person. You just need a person in the area, and that's not going to cost too much. And again, like we said in the start, you're buying a business that's already producing income, maybe less than it should, but you're buying an asset that's performing. And I mean, at a lower value, and you can just look at it and say, I don't have to build anything. I don't have to spend anything other than maybe some, upgrades to key cards or something that's better. But there's not a huge spend on it. It's just operational efficiency changeover that's going to make you a money. And like, as you were saying, you can double your value real quickly from just doing a better job operating.
Yep. You're just renting space. Literally, like if a guy who is 75, 80 years old can, on a yellow pad with a cash box, can make money doing it with storage, renting space out, I promise, I shouldn't say promise, but you are pretty well off on that realm of doing well, and seeing that value and taking that operations to the next level for customer service.
Yeah.
So renting space and then being able to have your time freedom and, things aren't urgent, like no toilets, no tenants, no employees, less problems is kind of my thing. Like if you can't get into your stuff for heaven forbid for 24 hours, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but if you can't get into your house. You don't
need that chess set that bad. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Your house. And that's what I love. Like I just came back from Greece and Croatia, and the best thing as a business owner is to you leave your employees and your workers and all your checklists, and you go see what breaks, right?
Right.
And you're hoping nothing happens. And that's how you look at the automations. But being able to, I always say the two things that I see have success is yes, having time and life options to have a slow morning with my daughter and bring her, if I wanted to daycare at 10 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. That's success. And then number 2 is laying your head down on the pillow at night and being like, I feel good.
Yeah.
There's nothing in my mind that's oh my gosh, I've got to do X, Y, and Z, or something's going to happen, or there's risk on X, Y. So that's how, at least I look at success. How about you? What's your definition?
Time freedom. I mean, I think that, we were saying in the pre-call, and you mentioned it a couple times. I mean, I've been on time freedom for a long time. I learned how to get there, but I think people think they're chasing a money value, but time freedom is different because the amount of money you can stack up differently depending where you live, what things you like to buy, what things you like to spend money on. So time freedom can be closer than you think. It could be one storage facility could create time freedom for someone if they just focus on managing it, and you can do it in your free time. So I think it's really important. Before we get to self-storage school, I just wanted to tell you one story because you're going to laugh. So I told you before I was doing off-market acquisition, my friend Ryan Goldfarb and I, we had 2 offers out. I think they both one got accepted, one didn't. But we're at the first meeting. It's the middle of the pandemic, beginning of the pandemic. It was probably May of 2020. And I'm in there. I have mittens on, because it's that early in the pandemic. And we ask him for his financials, and he pulls out a cardboard thing with writing on it. And we look at each other like, yeah, this is going to be a good one. It's just like they don't answer the phone, which somebody has said in another episode. But I just think that's the type of thing that you're looking for, and it's very identifiable. So before we hop off, Bree, tell us about self-storage school. I know this is really your other baby. You have a 3-year-old, but self-storage school is really the thing that you've put a lot of effort into to helping people, follow this road that you found.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, starting a self-storage school, a lot of people came to me like, "Hey, like, how do you buy storage?" And so that was something that, wanting to be able to help people, like, how do you actually find a storage deal? How do you fund it? How do you put an offer in? Then how do you operate it? So we opened up storage school about 2 years ago, and we love helping people like find and buy and purchase their first cash flowing facility kind of without those headaches. And so we've got about 40 members right now, and a few just closing on their first deal. And so I think just seeing
Awesome.
it come full circle, when you are a business owner, and just seeing that, like, when I first started, like, I wish that this existed, because I definitely beat my head 9 months, 10 months,
Yeah.
and made mistakes all the way down the way. Like, and so that's kind of what we believe in self-storage school is like, what are the meat and potatoes, right? You don't want to be a number. So as we hit, like, everyone is like, it's 80 people and below, and that's it. So we take only people that are action takers that want to buy their first facility. But every single week we meet live for an hour and a half, and we go over the 5-part self-storage method, and we do underwriting deals. We're finding deals. They've got a deal pipeline. And then on Fridays, everyone brings their deals, and we actually have office hours for 2 to 3 hours and submit offers together.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's a little bit about storage school. And so if anyone, after this is inspired or interested in wanting to buy their first facilities, love to, have a conversation with them. No obligation at all. But I would love to give, just like your listeners, one of our deal finding cheat sheets. And
Yeah,
so we've
awesome.
got a cheat sheet that is amazing. It's like 3 pages long, just on what we just went over on how to find storage facilities like mom and pop owners on Google. And then I also have an underwriting calculator. So to
Awesome.
make a quick, offer, it actually will tell you what it's worth today, what it could be worth in 3 to 5 years. And then it comes out with a PDF offer that you can submit to a broker or to a seller.
Cool. Where do they find that link? Is it on
Absolutely, yeah.
selfstorageschool.com/something?
Yeah. You can go to the website, selfstorageschool.com. But if you do want that, that's only for your listeners. But if you DM me, just kind of like we would say, just your first and last name, where you listen to it, what episode. And then if you can just DM storage, the word storage, to 916-579-7209, I will send that personally out to you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having the perk, and I think you will get some texts for people who want to take action. And I think one thing that I found before we finish this up is that it's not just having the mastermind and the group. The people who get in the group meet other people in the group that can change their life. Obviously, you're directing them in a great way, but don't they make relationships with each other that could become lifelong things? Because they're all in the same boat, all want to do the same thing. So you create this tribe inside that you can help them all, but then they help each other so much as well.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point is, we've got people that come in that are doctors, and they're like, "Hey, I love my job. I do have, $200,000 of capital." And then we've got people who are operators. And so being able to line those up, and I think what with storage and commercial is there's a bigger piece to the pie, right? Like in residential, $400 of cash flow a month doesn't excite people. You can't really split that.
Yeah.
But in storage, there's a lot more opportunity for partnerships, and then making sure that you can, take down deals together with different skill sets. And then number 2, split the proceeds, the cash and the equity. So we love pairing those people up. And then I love doing deals with my students as well. So if it's a great deal, we love doing them and bringing the capital as well. Like, cause I always say I'm an operator, but I don't love it. So if you're an operator, that's what I look for. I love operators, like I love the deal.
That's another Cody principle though. Find the operator, then you found your business. It's just about finding someone who can do the operations. And I agree, especially because you have your hands in a lot of things. So it's like, it's hard to be the operator for everyone. If you can get an experienced operator, now you can triple partner and get them to operate others, and then you really have a lot of irons in the fire.
Absolutely, hands down. So I think there's just so much opportunity, for storage. I'm very bullish on the storage industry. It's going to only grow, more and more, and the need for it. And so I do think the myth of, I see a storage everywhere, every corner, it's because you live in an urban area in public storage, looking and being smarter than the average bear, and then seeing value where it hasn't been had yet. So yeah, excited to kind of see, especially right now, we're in a buy time, like in acquisitions, we are seeing more, sellers raising their hands, more open to seller financing, and as well as like with lending terms. So it's buy time right now. So we're all in right now. We're going for it for this. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, but it's always to ride that, like, hey, get it while it's hot, get in the market now, and then find those really good facilities that that you can operate and increase the value. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been a great episode and great to talk to you. I'm glad we got in touch, and thanks so much for coming on. I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you. So good to see you. Thank you so much.
All right. That was Bree Hartman. She's the founder and CEO of Self Storage School. You can find it at selfstorageschool.com. If you just go back like 2 minutes, there's a phone number that you can text to Bree, and then you'll get 2 free resources from them. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on the next episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And we've done industrial, but we're going a little bit different with my guest, Blake Rogers of Steel Peak Properties. What do? They're a real estate investment firm that specializes in unlocking value in industrial outdoor storage. They seek low coverage industrial sites with outdoor storage zoning and capitalized values ranging from 5 to 50 million. This is a fun show. It's different. It's new. Can't wait for you to hear it next episode with Blake.